G'day guys, a review of Randwick for the 25th. A bit of a funny day from my point of view, but we'll go through it. The rail was 9 metre position. It looked a bit leaderish maybe early, but nothing really says that that was the case. Coming towards the end of the day, it ended up looking like the fence went off and it got towards the outside, so kind of changed throughout the day, possibly. No incredibly fast or slow paces, so most horses had their chance. There were a couple of solid paces. They've most were at least average or above. So we'll get into it. Race 1 for the 3-year-olds over the 1200, and it looked like on paper that there'd be a bit of a speed duel up front, especially when they came out and said they were going to ride Dark Eyes forward, so maybe that affected what the others were going to do. Noble Joey ends up getting a really comfortable time of it up front when Yuma Desert and Dark Eyes sort of missed the kick. Adkins just happy to sit 3 wide Yuma Desert, which we'll see, and that changed the complexion of the race. A very strange ride on Dark Eyes, and for let's have a look. So the first thing is that the 2 horses that were looking to go forward, Yuma Desert, Dark Eyes, are now out the back. The others are sort of there but not pressuring the leader. Adkins ends up whipping up 4 wide. And the 2 back markers here are Dark Eyes and Static Lift. I'm not sure why Clipperton doesn't tend, because they're going so steady, actually going a little bit quicker than they look, that he doesn't tend to get on the favourites back. It's not as if it's really worked that hard and it was always going to take him far enough into the race, you would have imagined, rather than getting on the back of the 2 25-to-1 chances and trying to find a split. If he's around Yuma Desert, he's here now, and I'd say it's race over the way he's gone. He definitely looked to be travelling a lot stronger than Static Lift and had better form than him, so I'm surprised if he wouldn't have been definitely in the finish, and then he just sits up on him. So obviously a complete forgive for Dark Eyes. Static Lift solid. Noble Joey has been racing well and took advantage of that softish lead, or even tempo at least, and that's what it likes to do, roll along in front. Yuma Desert racing well and didn't have a lot to suit there, but at the same time I don't think it was overly disadvantaged sitting wide in that race. Still a good effort with a little gap behind him, but I think Dark Eyes takes a lot of the merit out of the first 3 horses, as it clearly should have finished a lot closer. Race 2, another race where I thought they'd go a little bit harder than they did. They do run along okay, and Russian Revolution just may be a very smart horse by the look of it. The horses that were disappointing in Infradig and Almin Hard I definitely would be forgiving. Conchita failed, but that didn't really surprise me. I thought it was priced well under its real odds. And Who Said It's Easy, who was planned to go back in this race, I'm not sure why, is definitely an on-pace type for mine, and when it gets to 1400, probably next start, I'd be interested to follow it. El Cid looked really good here, thriving on racing, and didn't have a lot of luck, probably. It's stiff to not run a place, and looked a really nice type. Morton's Fork runs well, to be so honest, with a bit of speed, so got great speed, Treviso. Almin Hard had the blinkers first time, and they did plan to go forward, but gets pratted wide and then eased out of it. Looks like it's got a few quirks in it, maybe a bit of a drama to follow the horse, but it does look to have ability, and I'm sure it will pick up a race. Who Said It's Easy, no luck early, back in the middle and not really enjoying where it's racing. I thought its effort was very good in this race. El Cid also got a long way back, so it does a good job to track into the race, and when it did, the winners doesn't look to be overly pressured, but it just may be a good horse. It may be a strong, travelling, good horse. Who said it's easy in the bumping duel with these two that end up getting beaten a long way and runs on? The winner's off and gone, showing a nice turn of foot. Morton's Fork held up a little bit, but runs on well and probably not its race, and the winner just may be smart. Treviso obviously is an improver too. I think they're all of these place getters are definitely horses that can win races. Well, the winner obviously, Morton's Fork's ready to win. Treviso may be back a grade. I don't think it can go much better than that. El Cid probably similar. I'd like to see these two probably back a grade, but not impossible to win at this level. And Who Said It's Easy 1400 on pace. I think it'll be very difficult to get past. Forgivable efforts. I'd say Infradig probably goes for a break after this. And I'm not sure what happens to Almin Hard. I could definitely forgive it most of that margin. Just put the line through it, and they'll probably start again with him. Race 3, the highway, and the fastest pace of the day, so they do go pretty quick up front. King Mandu, if it doesn't finish the course, bled. Snappy One gets knocked over. Complete forgive to it, even though it was a big odds. I think Royal Engineer pulled up with an issue as well, which takes a lot of merit out of the race. The favourite not having its chance. Personally, I was sort of keen on Mossman's Goal. I didn't take part in the race too much, but Mossman's Goal was the one who was, and Charge of Light were the two interesting horses, but both had trip queries on them, and both didn't seem to run it out. Starshaft looked desperately unlucky, and Rock on the Riz sort of just picked up the pieces. I wouldn't be too keen to follow too much out of this race. See shortly here, King Randu drops out after bleeding and takes Snappy One with it back through the field, so complete forgive for it. I was surprised to read the comments of Adam Sewell after this race, saying that he was thinking that Mossman Gold was looking for more ground. I hope he hasn't communicated that to the owners, because the trainer, probably looks the opposite to me. It sprints quickly, but as soon as it does, it tends to hit the wall the last 100. Starshaft's found some interference here and takes a while to get late, and then Rockins Ariz Costin just came in the best part with a well-timed run. I don't think there's much between those horses, and I wouldn't be jumping out of trees to follow too many of them. Charge of Light definitely back to 1,000 metres, is probably ready on a similar run on surface. Starshaft's going well enough, and so is Mossman's Goal, but again back in trip to win races at this level, and Rockins Ariz is obviously an honest horse in itself. Another race I don't really want to spend too much time on in the 2600 metre race. Spanish Stride was pretty orderly ridden, but disappointing. Zatopaz just didn't look the same horse and was pretty much under pressure from the 600 or 800 metres. Never showed any sort of kick. And Murphy's Delight, similar, not racing at its best. Defrost My Heart probably took off a little bit early, as we'll see, but not a gypsy. Very strong late, which did surprise me, but possibly could be a sign of how average the race is overall. Very little tempo early in the race before Dream Fate whips around them. Not a lot happens. Defrost My Heart's had the right run here, and Not a Gypsy's done no work whatsoever in the run. Basically gets the perfect trip, gets on the back of Zatopaz, then gets on the back of Defrost My Heart, which carries it into the race. They get right away from the rest, but again, this is just to me a sign of a race of out of form stayers, or stayers that are not going to raise to too strong a heights. Obviously not a Gypsy, you can't say that about, because it does. He's the 3-year-old, he's on the up and does find the line the best. Really impressive its last 100, really, considering it's running down a hard fit Waller runner. Jumping sharply in trip, so not a Gypsy, the only horse to follow. Defrost My Heart probably going well enough to win something around this 2400 to 2600 metre range, back to a Wednesday race, probably even more so. Another strange race. Alright, we'll just head back and talk about it for a second. So, Fulia heavily backed, $4.60, second favourite, just amazing. Not sure what was going through the minds there with that betting move. Marinostro, a drifter, out to $5 and ran accordingly. Hemerata solid, Berry Delicious solid, Farrellitos extremely heavily backed, given a perfect ride and finishes off well. Obviously Berry Delicious did look the winner before it suffers a bleeding attack at about the 200 metre mark and does an exceptional job to hold on for second, really. Just part of our sort of day where we run into a few bleeders and dead ends, but that's part of racing. But it does detract from the overall merit of what looked a pretty soft race anyway. So they run along evenly. Fulia's basically gone on straightening, and here they come. Great ride from O'Hara and Berry Delicious, cuts to the outside of the eventual winner, Farrellitos. Amarada's had every chance. Berry Delicious looked to have the measure of Farrellitos before it suffers that bleeding attack. And eventually Farrellitos gets the better of it, and they beat the rest comfortably. So Berry Delicious will get the 3-month ban. Farrellitos will obviously go to something similar. Amarada's racing well, probably have a few weeks off now after being on the backup this week, and ran okay, but not probably to its best. And the rest, just solidish sort of effort. So again, not much to be learnt. Hard to knock Farrellitos. It's had every chance, but done pretty much everything right. They've all had their chance. And on we move. Probably maybe Black Jag back on the inside, the one horse that can improve. Another lacklustre race, solid tempo. Elu, a heavily backed favourite. Not much to speak of out of this race. It just got to the best part and was too good. Settle second last. They're running along solidly enough. Gets on the back of Zelda. Stablemate Harlem Lady through the middle. Seems to have peaked. The only thing that did happen in the run, and probably a forgivable efforts, Tender didn't get on the paces. It missed the kick badly. Another horse that I sort of fancied on the day that didn't have a lot of luck and does finish off. It's racing well and did look well placed here, so it's a shame that it didn't get up on the speed early. It may have done something more, but Elu's just well too strong for them. Looks really well placed in this sort of grade during this period, and definitely can pick up more races over this winter period. Again, not a lot to be learnt, unfortunately. Here we go again, and 1400 metre race. One horse we were keen on and sort of identified as a black booker last time out, and they did go up around $21 this week before starting an $11 well-backed proposition. Missed the kick and raced a little bit further back than I hoped, but that barrier really did save him being caught wide and back like last start. solid enough tempo once again, but without little happening. There's one horse I thought ran really well here, and it was the other horse that we were keen on in the race, is Fig Tree. Just nothing goes right for him. He's trying to find a more forward position, stuck, sort of looks 4 wide there, 3 wide at best, and eventually ends up very wide and kind of looks to be going backwards on the turn. Given a rider change and a little bit drier track, or maybe even back a little bit in distance, I think he's well suited to win. I think he's going extra well, the horse. Most runners have their chance here. See where he ends up nearly last and widest and loses the turn. I'll concentrate on him first up before going and having a look at the winner. Looks gone before he eventually changes stride and balances up here and finds the line. So his run was a forgivable one for mine on a day where it's hard to sort of find horses to follow. Super Tycoon just gets that nice run through. Innes takes his time, doesn't panic, knows he's definitely got the horse under him, and when the gap appears he's just too strong late for what could only be a very well matched group of horses. There's not much between a lot of them. Dubai Style was probably the one that was a little bit disappointing, had its chance, and the horse that you could see back there pulling up was Metallic Crown, who was hard in the betting and pulled up with a bleeding attack as well. So when it is not a race that you really want to be keen to follow too much out of, I did like the run of Fig Tree, beating 3.5 lengths with a jockey change and possibly back to even 1200 metres or 1400 on a drier surface. I say sprint. In and out with the blinkers back on, just goes a bit keen here and really sets it up for the back markers. These winter sprint races are quite tough to work out. Mount Nebo, the winner, eventually comes from back in the field. Smart Volatility was first up from that decent break since being ins and out, just went too fast in front. I'm not sure where they go with him now, but Mount Nebo clearly sprints the best of the lot of them here. Wouldn't it be nice and Sebring's Son sort of finish off okay, and Shadowlord's going extra well. It's just a bit of a warning sign to me, even though he's an honest old campaigner, that Decision Times they're running second and Mount Nebo's winning these sort of sprints. They just seem to be a little bit of a lottery to me. Definitely a credible effort, Smart Volatility, considering how hard they've gone here. He's possibly a big improver. Shadow Lord going well. Really not a lot to be learnt. I think this is Office Bearer back on the inside. Honest horse that doesn't win out of turn, which is how you could describe most of these horses. Ins and Out was definitely disappointing, even though it did run along and over race a bit in the blinkers. But not sure where they go for him now to try and break through again. Smart Volatility definitely the one that can improve. The rest very difficult to play. Shadow Lord's probably going the best of them. I know we can't really knock Mount Nebo. Both its runs back have been okay. Lucky last and open race for the lesser rated sprinters. I was keen on Incostinati Skripchenko to be running on and hot hittish. I'm filthy with myself for not finding 3 sheets. I thought it would be having a bit of a hit out for the Cessnock Cup in a couple of weeks, and it's just a bad oversight to miss this horse here. Such a comeback stronger the way he ran in the highway last start, and he proved that no fluke. Overcoming trouble if anything here, and just way too strong for them. So they do go probably an even tempo. They don't go quick, which is the first surprising thing. And Costanati was well ridden, every chance. The winner's back a little bit further probably than expected outside the favourite hot hit. Skripchenko got a bit of a squeeze at the start and ends up giving them a huge start, which probably wasn't completely unexpected, but did expect them to go a bit quicker up front. As you can see, they're not really overtaxing each other. The winner got a little check here and squeezed, held up, had to wait for a run, go back inside and change course, and once he sees daylight, he's too strong for them. Always looked a nice type when he was coming through that highway series in the country championship road, and really has gone to a new level. He just pins his ears. Again, really, unfortunately, not too much to be learned. All these horses are take turns horses that really don't want to win out of turn. Hot Hit's going well enough, but really he probably is suited back a grade from this. Minnesota's going really well. Best of the on paces. Arujo had his chance. And Costanati, all of them have really had their shot at the title here and found a little bit short of the mark. So if they get the right setup, they can be competitive as always, but no standout horses to follow there, except for probably the winner, who is just racing really well, and 1200s where he's probably going to be even better suited. So pretty quiet day with not too many horses to follow, but hopefully there's a little bit there for everyone, and hopefully from a personal point of view have a bit more luck next time out with a few strange things happening yesterday. So thanks guys, have a good week.